President Obama has been praising the deal that was reached between the U.S. and Russia, saying it offers a chance to destroy Syria's stockpile of chemical weapons. But critics warn that President Bashar al-Assad will not live up to his commitments. As Senators John McCain and Lindsey Graham have said, they call this just meaningless. So what does it really mean? After all, Saddam Hussein violated 16 Security Council resolutions. That led to a war. Iran now defiantly ignoring 6 Security Council resolutions on its disputed nuclear program. U.S. Ambassador John Bolton, former ambassador to the UN and a Fox News contributor, also a senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute, joins us now, as he does every Sunday at this time. Good morning, Ambassador.
Good morning, Eric. Glad to be with you.
Good to see you. Well, that Syrian list of chemical material is due on Friday. Do you think they'll come up with it and this deal will work?
Well, I think that the deal is not going to be repudiated by the government of Syria. It's much more likely to die a death of 1,000 cuts. So let's say Friday comes and they don't have the declaration. And then maybe Saturday comes and they don't have the declaration. And it drags out. And so by the time they file it, it's a little bit late, but, you know, are you going to go to war over that? I don't think so. Then you'll find the declaration's not complete, and it will need to be amended. They're going to drag this thing out as long as they can, and I think they will try to interweave it with other negotiations, the broader peace negotiations, the question of how to deal with Israel's nuclear weapons program. Don't forget, just Tuesday of this past week, President Putin of Russia said, we all know the only reason Syria has chemical weapons is because of fear of Israel's nuclear capability. So, you know, you want to get rid of weapons of mass destruction across the Middle East. That'd be a subject the Russians and the Syrians would love to talk about.
So if they play out the clock, what happens?
Well, I think nothing happens. I think that's Russia's calculation. You know, the notion that Russia began to negotiate because of the threat of a U.S. strike is ludicrous. I don't know any serious observer of the House and Senate in Washington who thinks that they were going to get a majority, even in the Senate, for the use of force. And I don't know anybody who really believes that Obama would have used force without that authorization. So, at least in the short term, there was no U.S. threat of force. And what Putin has done through this negotiation, I think, is essentially take it off the table forever. I think the net effect of the agreement and the implementation of the agreement, if it ever happens, will simply be to buy more time for the Assad regime, buy more time for Russia and Iran to bolster the regime and to see the civil war continue.
So did Putin win?
Yes, I think he did. I think his objective has been clear for 2.5 years, although the Obama administration has never understood it. Putin, the Russian objective is keep Assad in power, and that's where they still are. I think if I were in the opposition, I'd be dismayed by this outcome. I think if I were in Tehran, which in my view is where the real problem is here, I'd be delighted by this outcome because it showed the United States, having made the threat of the use of force, back down. And, you know, President Obama has threatened force against Iran. He says, elliptically, all options are on the table. I don't think the Iranians believed him before, but if the president's not willing to use force, even after the use of chemical weapons with emotional, searing pictures of children dying of sarin gas, if he's not willing to use force there, I think the Iranians think they're home free.
Well, what happened to the so-called Munich moment? What, 6-7 days ago, John Kerry warned about appeasement, and now you've got the Syrians allegedly bombing schools and hospitals. You've got the gas attacks. The rebels feel they're sold out, and Assad's not going anywhere, it seems.
Yeah, I think having watched the video of Secretary Kerry and Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov announced the agreement in Geneva, I think Secretary Kerry's suffering from Stockholm Syndrome. He thinks he's got a good deal from the Russians. They're just, they ought to see now what other deal they can get from him and President Obama. This is what happens when the president puts himself in a situation he has not thought through, when he flip-flops, he dithers, he moves back and forth, he shows weakness and indecisiveness. Let me tell you, Vladimir Putin, former KGB agent, is one tough individual, and when he sees weakness, he seizes on it and advances his own agenda. That's what he's done here.
We'll be talking about that in the 12 o'clock hour. Finally, quickly, Ambassador, what will happen tomorrow when the inspector's report is given to the Secretary General and he hands it to the Security Council?
I think there'll be little doubt that all of the evidence will point in the direction that it was the Assad regime that used these chemical weapons. I honestly don't think that's been seriously in doubt from the get-go. And given this agreement in Geneva, this report is a waste of time, basically.
All right, all eyes on the UN tomorrow. Ambassador John Bolton, as always, thank you for your analysis.
Thank you, Eric.